Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. I'm looking at a book which has come to us from the ARC Group and the Solicitor's Journal, and it's a very interesting book on costs. The book itself, the title is Costs Law A Practitioner's Guide. It's been edited by Laura Slater, and Elizabeth and I talked about the book because costs, of course, is a very major issue in any form of litigation. We came up with a title for our book review: Excellent Advice for All Involved in Costs Issues at a Critical Time for Civil Litigation. The reason we say that, of course, is because civil litigation is at a crossroads with all the changes that are now upon us, biggest single changes since the Judicature Acts. Rather a long time ago. Now, what do we say about the book? Well, let's have a look at it first of all. It's a paperback, purple cover. There we go. There's the front. It's quite a small book, nice pound sign on the front. There's the spine, and then there's the back. There's not a lot of information which is on the back. In the book itself, there are, for each of the chapters, there's no index, but there are references for each of the chapter headings. And at the front, Costs Law A Practitioner's Guide, it just shows the basis of the book. Then there's the blurb there. I don't believe it's an e-book, it's just a basic standard publication. Then you've got the contents section, and then for a forward, an executive summary, very much the style, actually, the house style of ARC. And then you see the various chapter headings running all the way through. And then at the end, chapter 15, 15 in total, and there's a foreword, which I found very helpful, written by Sue Nash, who is chairman of the Association of Costs Lawyers. And then there's an executive summary, which sets out what the book is about. It's easy to read. I didn't find it a difficult book at all to have a look at. And then there's a detail about the authors, the people involved. A lot of people actually involved in this. You can see the names. Probably recognise some of them in the past for all of the work that they've done. You can see that it's running all the way through. And then we start off with the introduction. Costs, what's the current issue? And then the name of the person who's actually written it. And it runs all the way through. You do have the referencing at the back of each chapter. There's no paragraph numbering. This is part 2 on funding, for instance. CFAs starting there. Again, you can see there are some subheads, but there's nothing specific in terms of paragraph numbering. And part 4, for instance, practice area focuses. That's actually the book. I thought it was a very good book for any practitioner, whether you're at whatever level you're at. I'm sure you'll find it useful to just hone your understanding at the moment of where we are with costs law. So what do we say about the book? Well, we say this. Laura Slater, who's the editor of this important short statement, bringing together all the contributors, which covers costs issues, has produced what we say is an excellent piece of advice for all of us here on a wide range of issues for practitioners interested in how we deal with costs and their complex procedures. It's a compact book with answers to all the major questions of the day, which lawyers raise on costs, giving straightforward responses quickly and simply for the busy barrister, especially, of course, if you're in court and you're right at the end of a case and you need to know exactly what you have to do. So cost law has been rightly described as written in a straightforward, easily digestible style. Exactly so. Yes, it is, and the work runs us through the full costs management process, as to be expected. It's a short book. It explains the complex matters in, I think, quite simple terms. One of the problems with costs, I found it as a student, I'm sure many of you did, is that it seemed to be far more far more complex than it should be when one is looking at the type of costs awards that can be made, and of course the understanding of discretion. And in terms of the awards, bearing in mind that costs normally follow the event. In other words, the person who wins, the party who wins, will get a costs award. And of course, the book starts with the preparation of budgets and funding options, and then runs through to review costs, offers and recovery. And I think, again, that's very helpful, tactical, strategic advice for you as an advisor to the parties, because the parties must be aware of the realistic ability of and availability of recovery at the end of a particular hearing. Slater set out individual practice areas to focus on and hones in on what are called the intricacies of cost management for family proceedings, which many unrepresented parties will find of great assistance. She also covers costs in commercial cases such as the Employment Tribunal and the Technology and Construction Court, which I appear in, which, although complicated areas of practice for many, are beautifully explained, and I thank her very much for doing that. Practitioners are given, of course, a detailed commentary on the most significant case law that has built up over the last 3 years, which is, I think, most helpful for contentious litigation. And she also gives the reader practical guidance on how the cost management rules are currently being implemented and applied. Additionally, of course, it offers expert insight into new and upcoming developments throughout the 15 concise to-the-point chapters. Let me conclude by saying this about the book. It's only a short review that I'm doing here. Cost Law is undoubtedly a classic short work from ARC, and it's one which you should take to court. It's easy to take in the briefcase or have readily available during a conference. Probably conferences are quite useful because this sort of book the public today should be thinking of purchasing, because so many are unrepresented parties, and of course the issue of cost goes to the heart of much of the contentious litigation. It's also, I think, one of a growing number of books now on the market which are eminently readable and which will be a great help, as I say, to the litigant in person as we look at new changes to the way in which we deal with civil litigation in the next couple of years. The publication date is cited at 2016. Let's have a quick look at the book again. There it is. It runs to about under 200 pages. There's the spine and then there's the back. And then just opening it in the back, in fact, what I'll do is I'll start with the beginning. You see the structure, it's the chapter numbers, 15 chapters. It starts with budgeting, then it goes on to funding, then it goes on to offers and recovery, then it goes on to practice area focuses. And I do think that that's very, very helpful. And in the middle of it, there is, for instance, the statutory cap for personal injury cases, which is set out there. Now, anyone who does PI work will be interested in that immediately because of the changes that are taking place. This is looking specifically at, initially at conditional fee agreements, but it then goes on to develop some of the areas of voluntary cap and all the other points. Then, of course, it mentions the Civil Justice Council review. So it's a very up-to-date book. I know I'm reviewing this in January 2017. It's been around for a little while now, but it's an excellent book from ARC, and I like to recommend it to you because I do think in your practice you should know about the book. Have a quick read of it. It's a bit easier than the old white book, which I haven't actually got in front of me. It's just behind me, but it's a bit easier than the white book to understand. But thank you to all concerned, the contributors and ARC, for taking on the mantle of this publication. It's a very worthwhile one. Thank you to all. Bye-bye.